This is the Cool Geek, and I'm going to start off with modules in this session. Modules or classes, whatever we can call it. And in the last video, we have seen how we can make. We have written our first video, and the sample codes have been displayed here. Now, as you can see, that we have simply run this codes to get us the output that we require here. So I enter some value and something like this. Then if I run the code, any one of them, and I would definitely get my output, the sum of these two numbers. So the procedure for this, just to give you a idea whether these two is correct. Yes, and that is correct. So basically, writing our first code is not only where we are going to stop. We are going to go more, and this is where the things are going to get serious. So first, let us begin with the modules to understand the environment that we are going to code. I'm not going to give you exact meaning of how modules work out, but I'm going to give you my way of seeing it and the easier way of seeing this. So as of now, while I'm teaching you, let's more focus on the modules rather than the classes, because modules will help us ease our work at the best. We would not require so much of the classes while we are doing simple things in Excel. So I'll keep it very simple and easy. So let's say I have different modules or classes can be containers where we start writing the codes, right? So if I'd say containers, you see that we have written our code in a module here, right? Similarly, if I close most of the containers here, um, they're coming and confusing me. Okay, so I have so many windows with me here. Let's say this is the module 1. This is my first container where I actually should be writing all my codes from now on, until unless I give you an instruction to where we have to write the codes. There are other modules, or let's say classes. We will call them as the classes. So if you see this is a class where it is a container to where we write the code, but in fact it would be a much more better called a class. Don't confuse yourself between a module or a class. So just imagine this also as a container where I can write the code, but this code would only be specific to a particular sheet. So basically, any code or any events that I want to write within this particular sheet, this is where we are going to write it, right? Similarly, I'm going to show you few cool tricks on using them as well, but prior to that, let us understand why we have to write it within the modules, right? So as of now, rather than calling them classes and modules and getting yourself confused, let's have them as objects for the Excel workbook that we are using. So 3 sheet objects, 1 workbook object, and then how many ever modules we can add that we want to write. So basically, uh, let's take an example of let's say you have two different liquids that you want to store, and uh, and obviously you cannot store them in one container, right? So let's say you have milk and water, you cannot store both of them in one container. You have to store them separately. So similarly, while we are actually writing our code, these containers or these modules help us contain a specific group of code so that we can easily write or understand or debug the codes moving forward, right? So right now, let's move on ahead and understand few of the things. So there are five types of these containers. One is a sheet. By default, each sheet will be having 3 containers, and that depends on the number of default sheets that you are working with, and the default for Excel is 3, so 3 such things. Also we have workbook, which will be unique for a particular workbook, so one for a workbook. Now we have the other one, that is module, and this is something we can insert through this insert, and you see that if you hit the small arrow, you will see that there the other things that we are having here, right? So there is a user form module and class module, right? So let's move on to the next one. Once we have that, we also have module itself. Most common, we are going to write our codes most commonly in this place. And then we have users form and classes. We're not going to cover classes as such in this series, but we are going to cover till user forms and a very little percentage of about these two. Mostly we are going to come on, most often we are going to use module uh, to get a good hands-on the programming before moving on to awesome stuff in Excel VBA. So hope you understand where we will start writing the code. The most of take away from this is that you always insert a module. Either you can right click here and insert a module here, or you can click the small little arrow here and insert a module here. Always insert a new module before you start writing your code, right? So this is going to be one good takeaway from this video. In the next video, we are going to cover how once we identified the container, how we are going to actually define the set of instructions to perform a particular activity, right? So we are going to revisit few of the codes that we have already written, and I have demonstrated to you a few of the methods, events, examples. So we are going to use them, the subroutines, to understand how we are going to achieve that. Thank you for watching.